is that there is a lot of opportunities for junior golf, and then a lot of opportunities kind of for golf going forward as well. We know the panel here. Just another quick introduction. I run a junior golf academy up in Saratoga Springs, New York. Also teach adults, do club fitting, indoor facility. Also am an assistant coach with Tom over at Skidmore College, so kind of get a chance to see both sides of this and get a pretty nice view of both types of players. So it's kind of a fun way to spend my days. There's different opportunities, as I said. I think it's important to understand that as a junior golfer, you have opportunities to play very competitively, somewhat competitively, and also maybe more leisurely and more fun and treat it more as a social event. And that kind of goes throughout your life. Josh and I were just talking about competitive golf, and we've been playing for a long time, and we enjoy both the competitive side and the kind of more leisurely side as well. The game kind of is cradle to grave, so we get to do that for a long time. And if you decide to possibly go into a career in golf, like we all did, we have those opportunities as well. And being a golfer it's kind of fun. There's different business opportunities that can come up as well. We see that a lot where golf might add to your resume as you go through the idea of any career at that point. So just a quick rundown here. I know like some of you guys have been in this program for a long time, right? Northeastern New York, I see some players that we've seen since maybe like ages 5, 6, 7, and we start with this, kind of developmental program. The PGA has been great about the drive, chip, and putt, the PGA Junior League, and kind of how that goes. Then we can get into some individual events with different tours and different local tours, regional tours, and national tournaments. This is kind of how this works and how it works from a training aspect, and really blends into that college golf scene. And it is a filtering system where if you're at a high level and you want to continue on to play, then you have opportunities to play in college. That doesn't mean you have to, it just is available to you. I wrote just a quick group of tournaments. As you can see, we host a beautiful tour here. Zach and Christian and Tracy do a great job with this. 12 events or so a year, 1-day events, 2-day events. They're great. They're local. They get to experience a lot of local golf courses. Really nice to have in this local area. There are some opportunities to extend off of that as well from a qualifying standpoint and national type scenario. The U.S. Kids Golf is another kind of younger group, 14 and under, I believe that is. Nice way to get involved if you're kind of on that younger stage. Parents can caddy in that event, which is sometimes a good thing. I've seen both sides. The high school golf scenario, a lot of you have played high school golf, just finished the season. I believe we might, just quick Brady to go. I gotta get Brady to know what prop he's there. He won the sectional championship this year as a freshman, so Braden's here tonight. Braden had a pretty good year. He deserves a little clap. Pretty good. And we go into some more national regional events. Hurricane Tour. That's a nice kind of entry point to that multi-day tournament schedule. That kind of bleeds into maybe some New York State Golf Association, and then obviously the HHA is kind of that premier event, and some of the USGA events. So you can kind of see how there's a hierarchy there. I think that there's opportunities. Kind of skipped over the Adirondack Junior Golf Tour is one kind of in the North Country. It's kind of grown. There's 100 kids playing, and really pretty casual and local environment. So lots of opportunities to play. As you go in, you can kind of go through these. I'm not going to really go through this, but this is how it works. There's entry level. You can build up as you go through. Just a quick note on this. We'll get into this a little deeper. That AJGA, USGA event. I know a lot of people, I get this question at times, like how do I get into an AJGA event? That is kind of the cream of the crop. That's international, really. So you're getting a really big filter of players that are trying to get into these small fields. And there's thousands and thousands of kids that are trying to get into these little small fields. So there is a process to go through. I'll go through that a little bit. If anybody wants further information on that level, I know there's some players here that have kind of cracked that level a little bit, and they can maybe answer some questions too. It's not an end-all be-all. It's just kind of the next step of trying to play. Junior golf scoreboard is something that I think is important to kind of know what it is. It's basically a ranking system where we can, as college golf coaches, we can go in and see players' scores and see players' ranks, see players' ranks against other players that we know are recruiting. And it's a pretty good system, I'd say, where it takes multi-day events. It gives you a ranking based on how well you score on each day in relation to the other field, and then there's bonuses for winning and stuff like that. So there's a full ranking. You can sort by male, female, and also by age. Thousands of players in there, and they're all kind of competing for spots on golf teams, which are kind of few and far between, 2 a year, right? About 2 a year for colleges. So there's a lot of schools, so there are opportunities. But that is something that I think when I first saw this, it was 10 years ago, it's, wow, this player's really good. Where are they ranked? And it's 4,742nd. I'm like, well, all right, we got some work to do. Or just knowing where you stand within kind of that full aspect of national rankings, really. Nice way to, I think, do you guys look at that? Yeah, everybody here, right? So, yeah, you guys all kind of, I look at it from a playing standpoint too, where, maybe you set a goal, I want to be in the top 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever it is. So, I can talk more about that if anybody has any questions on that. I look at it a lot. We'll go through this AJGA situation because it's just a show of hands who's tried to crack this code. Because it's a code. We got a few people, right? Taking a look at it and seeing what it means. It's basically it's a performance-based entry system where you get stars for certain playing accomplishments, basically, right? So to sign up, you get a star. If you're a junior, you get 3 stars. Sophomores and seniors, you get 2 stars. And as you play in 2-day events, you can accumulate stars by finishing towards the top of the field or winning tournaments, or just kind of depending on the field size, you accumulate stars, and that kind of shows you where you fall within each tournament. So tournaments are getting more and more complicated and more competitive at that top level. I played junior golf. I'm aging myself. I don't think stars existed when I played junior golf. But I signed up for 2 AJJ events. I got into one just signing up, and I had to qualify in another one. Josh, do you stars back then?
I don't think they had the AJJ around then.
At least they did. They had it. I don't think they did the star system as much as it's kind of competitive right now. So, not that this is something that needs to happen for any of these players, but if you are looking to get into that kind of that top level or that higher level of golf and transition to college, I would imagine that most of those college players are playing in these events. You can accumulate stars. You can play in qualifiers. You can play in 2-day events and get into that situation where they start accumulating and you get into events and keep playing. As a coach, we try not to stress over that. We really don't like our players stressing over their stars or stressing over their rankings. We want them to hit the golf ball where they want to hit it every time and let all of that stuff play out. That's kind of the story. So I want to go through that because I think a lot of people have that question: how do I get into these events? Should I sign up for the AGAGA? And I think there's a time and a place for it, and sometimes necessary, sometimes not. So hook there. I put this slide in just to get an idea. I think that we get this question a lot of what does it take to play college golf? I use that 76 number. That's kind of a magic number for a bunch of years, really. If you're a male golfer, 76 should be about average for your scoring. You're not going to shoot at 76 every day. Never seen it. Never going to happen, right? But if you shoot 72 and you shoot an 80, that's pretty much what we're looking for. If your 76 is maybe your best score, that's going to kind of show where you might fall in the tiers of college golf. Girls are, I should have put 80-ish. Really all depends on where you're looking to go play. Those are just kind of basic benchmarks. when you see college golf scores, they're getting lower and lower now. Like 75 is kind of a number, even, we talk 300, right? 300 is kind of 4 players shooting 75. That's not really winning anymore, right? It's barely competing. So that 76 is kind of like probably drifting down a little bit lower now. And then one of the big ones that, I hear this from a lot of coaches too, and is the low-high spread. So what is your high number? Because if we're playing team golf, you're kind of dropping a low score, and the next high score is going to count. Is it 82? Is it 84? Is it 86? Or is it 76? And that's a big one. So from a coaching standpoint, if you're playing bad, grind out that 76, 78. That looks a lot better on the resume than an 82 or 84. And that's really important because some days you're going to shoot 68 or 72 or 74, and those are going to be good days, right? So that low-high spread is a big one. And, as college coaches, we want to rely on our players to go out and put a good number on the board on a consistent basis. And then we look at scorecards a lot. I look at scorecards for all my junior players. I can't watch all my players play, but I can see their scorecards a lot. And we look at what happens when you make a double bogey. Right? If you make a double bogey, what happens after that? You make birdie, do you make another double bogey, you make triple bogey, you make a 15, right? That's a big one, and I think, I've challenged some of my players to say, if you make a double bogey, I've never seen you make a birdie after that, and okay, so now you make a double bogey, you can kind of refresh your mindset. Like, oh, Anders told me I couldn't make birdie, I'm gonna make birdie. Worked once or twice. But that's big. When you guys look at scorecards, you see that, right? Look at scorecard trends and what happens when you make a 9. Do you keep making 9s, or do you make some 5s and 4s and 3s and get back in the ground? That's a big one. We can't see everybody play all the time.
Hey, Anders.
Yes. I just want to throw in this happened to me a lot in the last 2 weeks. There's a huge difference between scoring average and handicap. And I personally don't care about your handicap. It's scoring average because of the high-low stuff.
Yeah, totally. The handicap drops the 10 out of 20. That's pretty good. 10 out of 20 gets dropped in a handicap. Scoring average is going to always be higher than your handicap. So, yeah, that's a good one. Yep, definitely. And then we're also kind of looking at that tournament field strength. So, if you're playing in high school 9-hole events and shooting 38, that's awesome. Keep doing that. But that's not really, from a college standpoint, that's not really a bearing on what we're looking at going forward. So have fun with high school golf, have fun with the 9-hole events, have fun with the one-day events. Use all those as kind of ammo, I guess, to go play those bigger events and score well in those. But at the end of the day, a 9-hole match against your local team, 38, 42, we're not probably going to see that ever, right? So that's something, and challenge yourself. If you want to be in those bigger events, try to get in them. And if we can get in those events and score well, then that starts to get some attention from coaches. And then from a timing standpoint, I think there's a sheet in the folder that's going to go through this a lot better than I am, and I made this morning. Sophomore, junior summers for playing are the biggest summers as far as kind of important. So not to overstress it, but if you're a sophomore in high school and you have a summer coming up this year, or you're a junior in high school, this is kind of a big year. This is a year to kind of showcase what you can do, and also gives you a really good idea on where you stand amongst your peers and what colleges you might be able to start contacting and stuff like that, right? Now, if you've kind of developed into that already, then you already know, but it's kind of the biggest summer. Can't wait until your senior year to try to figure that out. Coaches can start contacting you, did I get this right? After your junior year?
Depends on the division.
Depends on the division. Do tell.
Division 3 anytime.
Anytime.
After high school.
You might have to show them.
Yeah.
You got this one?
It depends a little bit on the division, because Division 1 and Division 2 have limits on when they can start contacting directly, making phone calls, sending emails out from the coach to the player. But for example, in Division 3, we can do unlimited email, phone calls, texting, starting like freshman year in high school. So there are no limits on that. We also don't have like that period of like no contact dates throughout the year. It can be out throughout the year. The Division 1 and 2 might have restrictions on that. So that might know more about that.
So yeah, Division 2, you're correct. After junior year, that's when we can start chiming in. Or people, I do find in my experience, I get a lot of emails from all kinds of age groups, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, I think it's good when prospective student athletes, PSAs, reach out. They're showing me that they're being proactive as opposed to waiting for me to contact them. That's just a bit of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it's perfect. I didn't think I knew that about Division 3, but just a heads up, Williams Division 3, Skidmore Division 3, Matt Division 2, Division 1 could not be here tonight, which we found out. Because of the no contact policy. Yep, so good to know. We want to, I love that idea of what Matt just said, don't wait to be recruited. Golf recruiting is something that I think might be kind of, I think it's a little bit of maybe overstated a little bit. There's not a lot of recruiting that goes on in the game of golf. In all honesty, we're trying to match a student to an educational institution, and we could waste a lot of time picking out a really good golfer, and it might not be a right fit for the educational process. So we and I as a coach always try to start the process like what Matt said, where the students are reaching out to the coach because it's a college or an educational institution that you might want to spend 4 years at and get an education from. We don't reach out to schools that are really maybe a reach school from either really educationally or athletically, and I think I'll go through this a little bit more, but making that initial contact kind of starts that whole conversation, and then it's, okay, is this a right fit or not? So really important to start that process on the front end, and you can't do it early enough, really. If you really want to go to Williams College and you're a freshman and you have good grades and you're a good golfer and you like Williamstown, Massachusetts, fire an email off to Josh. He gets how many emails a year?
200.
200. That's great.
Yeah.
Put that down.
Yeah, it's down a little bit. But
Yeah, 250 emails. I know Josh, he reads them all. He will read them all. This is kind of where we fit this, the education golf matrix, right? So we go to school for education. If we happen to be able to play golf, it's a beautiful thing. I think that there's a really good fit for everybody if you decide you want to do both educationally and golf. And we kind of go through, Division 1 has a tier system. I mean, there's your top level Division 1s. You see they're on TV, right? They're on the optional now. Tier 2s are a little bit below, Tier 3, Tier 4. And you can get an idea based on, I think this is a great project to take on. If you have an interest in a school, you go and just look at the stats and the results and what type of player they're recruiting. And if you go to Alabama, you're going to see the U.S. Junior Am champion and the AJGA Player of the Year and Stanford. That's the type of player that they're getting. As you go down to Division 2, 3, 4, or tiers on Division 1, you can kind of start to see that there's definitely separation there. And same thing with Division 2 and Division 3. There's Division 3 schools that are competitive and Division 3 schools that are, I would say at the top tier. Williams is ranked number 1 in women's. Ranked number 1 nationally in the women's Division 3. So that would be a Tier 1, right? Skidmore, Williams, you guys we're both top 50-ish, right? Out of 200? Yeah, so those are high-level Division 3 competitive schools. So there's options on the other side where maybe education might maybe take a little bit more of the priority. There are also options in college called club golf, which is something that I think the PGA has started to get involved with a little bit more, where it's kind of like high-level intramural golf. So there's a school you love. I mean, Syracuse is a great example. They don't have a men's program. I'm a Syracuse fan. My dad went to Syracuse, and they have a club golf team, which is competitive and fun. And And it's a nice way to kind of go about keeping your game at a competitive level throughout the game or throughout college. I know Chris is here as well. He will talk a little bit about careers in golf too. Professional golf management programs, those types of programs that are accredited at certain schools throughout the country. A great way to kind of get into that realm if you love being at the club every day, all week, all year. That's a cool way to kind of go through that. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you can always use golf in your career as an advantage. If you're a golfer, there's a lot of golfers in this country, and a lot of them have successful businesses or whatever you might be in, really all fields. And it's kind of the beauty of it, because we can use golf to help enhance your career, whatever field you might decide. So, this is what I recommend if we're interested in playing college golf. I call it making a dynamic list of schools. So this list includes the high reaches, the low level ones, the local ones, the international ones, wherever you decide you might want to go. I kind of put this as like a 30-day challenge where you put 30 colleges on this list and you email every one of them. Maybe one a day for a month. We're just kind of throwing them there. 5 will say no thanks, and then I'm going to put those off to the side, right? And eventually you'll start to whittle this down and come up with a really core group of colleges. Maybe that's the ones you go visit. Maybe that's the ones that get back to us with some interest. And we can start to really kind of start that process of, finding out if it's the right fit educationally first, obviously. What's the golf program look like? Is it something I would enjoy? Is it something that maybe is too much for me? And then find out what the rest of the team is doing. If that team kind of fits what your junior golf mold looks like, maybe that's a nice fit. And you email the coaches, you start the correspondence, and then you adjust the list. And you email the coaches again, and then you adjust the list. And you kind of repeat this process until it kind of gets down to a nice group, and maybe you have some options at that point. Options are good to have. I think that's ultimately the goal is, maybe actually around this time, if you're a senior right now, you want to have some options coming into where am I going to apply and what type of scenario am I going to be involved in next fall. And we kind of keep that process going. And it's a dynamic list, like I said, so it's kind of a moving document. I wrote some do's and don'ts. These are some of my favorites here. I'm not going to go through all of them over here, but I think it's really important to open lines of communication as early as possible. Prepare portfolios, prepare swing videos, whatever coaches want to see. There's a lot of different resources out there. We can do a lot on our own. We build a website now for basically free, and you call it Your Name Golf. I did it. Still alive. The idea of kind of showcasing what you have, what's your tournament resume, what's your extracurricular, what's your GPA, SAT, all that stuff. We can put it all in one document and just make sure you have it handy. So coach says, "Hey, cool, send me your packet," okay? And you send it right off. And there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And I think somebody can help you with that if you need help. There's guidance things out there. I do a lot of it where it's making sure that we're presenting ourselves the way we want to be presented, and organize that really, really well, and kind of organize what your future looks like as well. I'm playing in this tournament, this group of tournaments in the next 3 weeks. I'll keep you posted on the results. That kind of thing. One of the biggest things that I've had, actually, we had 9 kids go play college golf last year from our academy, and at least 3 or 4 of them all said, "You know what, Anders, you told us to have good body language. I never really believed you." And then the coach came up to me and said, "I'm going to give you a shot at the team because your body language is so good." Oh, that's a good idea, right? Positive body language on the golf course is incredibly important. I can't overstress it. For a couple of reasons. If you have good body language, you generally will play a little bit better. If you walk around kind of moping around and made a double bogey and start kind of losing that kind of chin up, coaches realize that, and I don't know if that player is really what I want to see on my team. Best body language, you watch the LPGA, PGA Tour, they all have really good body language for the most part. Rory's my favorite. He just gets up and goes. And that's part of the reason why he's good. And if you guys are out watching players play, that's a big one, right? Really. I'd rather a 72 walking like this than a 68 like this all day. It's worth a bunch of strokes. Very, very important. And I think it just helps your game in general. Second question that I've started to hear a little bit more from college coaches, how are your grades? I think that's a big one. If we're going to ask, I'm going to ask Josh some questions about that, but you know, how are your grades? Are you passing everything? Can you handle the, you know, the rigor of a college educational schedule as well as traveling and playing and practicing and training and all of these things? And not to mention the social life that goes along with college as well. There's a lot going on, and how are your grades is a big one I've been hearing a lot lately from coaches. I believe, and I'll kind of speak, I don't know, probably allowed to say like some of this, but I just let me know if I go over, but the application process to get into a college goes generally education prioritized then athletics. I know Josh, right, that
Yeah.
there's a certain person you cannot get into the school regardless of their golf game, right? And that's okay, but if you have a level that you want to get to from an educational standpoint, and you're a really good golfer, you might not be able to get there because of the grade situation. So just make sure you balance that really well. It's incredibly important. I'm going to go through some of these don'ts. I don't really like hiring services for your portfolio. Make it personal, make it personalized, at least if you're going to use a hiring service. Make sure you add some of your components in there. I've proofread some college emails that I needed to help with. I won't mention any names. Some of you might know him. But they make sure that's really clear, make sure it's really professional, make sure you present yourself well. I know email is kind of funny for kids under the age of 25, but email still kind of king in our world. Texting is good, but don't put a text into an email. It just kind of looks weird. Don't TikTok your portfolio. Can you do that?
Let's take a look at it.
I don't know what TikTok is. I don't know. That kind of gets to your profile is not just your personal profile, what you're sending. It's also incredibly easy to find information on people these days. Way too easy, I think. I'm totally not a social media person, as many as you know, and many of you know. So we have a big board in my studio that says don't cheat and don't tweet. Something as small as a tweet that kind of is off maybe for the educational institution or what we're seeing, that could be a little catalyst. Like, ooh, I don't know if I want that person around my players or around my school. So just be very, 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 very careful, or just don't do it. It's incredibly powerful, the internet these days. So social media is part of your portfolio. We can find info on you, and way too easy. So be careful with that. Two more things. I don't like to see any withdrawals from tournament unless it's heavily injury based. WDs look pretty bad. It looks like you're hiding from something. It's are you hiding from a bad score? Are you hiding from maybe something outside it? Just unless it's a major injury or something along those lines. I think it's a kind of a little scar on your resume. And then also don't give up. You never know. 12 over through 12, birdie the next 6, you shoot 76. You never know. Golf's a weird game. Never give up on those. And don't give up on school too. If you really want to go to that school and you want to work hard to get there, I think we'd rather see that as a coach saying, I want to be at Skidmore College, and I've always wanted to be there, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there, and I'm going to work hard. And that carries a lot to what we're looking for from the student, rather than somebody just coasting in. Well, Saratoga seems nice, right? I would love to get you guys to talk a little bit. Is that okay with you guys? I got some questions I've got kind of queued up for the panel here that I'd like to kind of start that dialogue. That's kind of all I have. If anybody has any questions on kind of the junior and how it transitions, we'll open up the floor in a couple minutes to kind of answer any of those questions or any questions for any of these guys as well. Again, thanks for coming. This is information that I love to share because I think it's hard to find. So it's kind of condensed into one pile here, and also being filmed for a website that Zach made, I believe. So some sort of Google site that he made to put all this information in one place. So if you weren't listening, you can catch that. All right. So I'm going to kind of start. I've had a few players go to college this year, and this is what kind of brings this to my attention, is that they called me a few months in and they said, hey, there's some stuff that I didn't expect at college. And I thought to myself, well, that's on me. I should have had you ask that question before you went to this college. And I'm going to kind of ask each, I got 3 coaches up here, maybe the players will and chime in. There's some pieces to going to play college golf that I think we need to know before we get to that college, and that way you're not going in and being like, oh man, I can't believe I went here, this is terrible. And so one of the questions that I think, I'm going to start at the end with Josh, is, how do we kind of marry the education and academic with the athletic, and how that, that schedule works, and how that, you're at a highly demanding, Williams College is one of the best liberal arts schools in the country, really, and they demand a lot from you educationally. And you run an awesome program over there. I just would love to kind of hear your spiel coming in for the players, what you tell them maybe before or while you're recruiting, and then also what it kind of looks like maybe as the players get to the university.
Thank you, Anders. Thank you for that great introduction on junior golf. You nailed it. That's stuff we talk about all the time, so clearly good at your job. So we talked earlier about the amount of emails you receive as a coach, anywhere from 200 to 300 any given year. At our school, high academic school, the first thing we look for is what does your transcript look like? What's it look like? How hard are your classes? What's your rigor like? Are you pushing yourselves? Once we get through that hurdle, you start talking with that person and you kind of vet out what kind of character they have. Are they a hard worker out of the classroom and on the golf course? Do they continue to push themselves even outside of golf? So who are they and how hard are they willing to work? From there, you start a conversation, a dialogue, going back and forth, and you get to know these people. That email basket goes from 300 to 60 very quickly at Williams, high academic. You whittle them down based on their transcripts, sometimes standardized tests, pre-SATs, all that good stuff, and you start really looking at who they are as a student-athlete, student. From there, then you go to your golf component. How good of a golfer are they? Where do they stand with their junior golf career, and what are they looking to get out of their college experience? And again, that goes from 60 down to 10. And then you start making the road trips to a junior tournament. And it's funny you said this about body language. I generally tend to go to the harder golf courses out there. And it's not so much about the score. I watch their body language when they make a double, make a triple, when they shoot 85. How do they act towards their parents? How do they act towards their peers on the golf course? You learn a lot from that alone. 72 is 72. 85, what's that look like, and what's the 5-hour van ride back with the team going to look like? So you put all that together, and you whittle down to eventually 3, 4, 5 students that you really like, and you start to know them junior year, going into senior year, and you develop that relationship. You meet their parents, their siblings, guardians, everybody coming in for that visit, and you continue to grow them, but you start the conversation of what the college is like as well, and what to expect. Generally speaking, we start around the 1st of September, and we'll start working our way into season right off the bat. We generally play 5 events in the fall and 5 in the spring, with the major season being the spring championships. And as you enter, September, you're playing golf all summer, and you're playing good golf, and you're rolling with it. 72 is not that hard to post. All of a sudden, a week or two into school, your friends are pulling you in a different direction. What dining hall are we eating at? I got my first set of problems set to. I got a paper coming up. Midterms are only, 2-3 weeks away. So it's all looming in the back of your mind. As that all piles up, it becomes pretty stressful. And by the time we wrap up, middle of October, you're right almost in the thick of it. And it's a great time to wrap up our college season in the Northeast because, people like Thomas, they need to get to school and start really cracking the whip and putting good grades on the board. So, looking at the academic side of it, if you've been in a school that's pushing you to get good grades, AP courses, honors courses, and you got a good mindset for time management, and you know how to separate golf, family life, friends, and academics, you're going to be way ahead of the curve when it comes to hopping to college. And when you get to college, there's nobody there to push you, telling you to go to the library. It's on you, and you got to be a mature individual to own it and cut those hours out and get your work done. So, when you're looking through these schools, and I love Andrew's perspective of 30 schools and that cone, you start to work into the cone and figuring out where you belong. When you start talking to coach about what the academic life is at school, you tend to feel comfortable with it, or like, boy, this is going to be really difficult. I got to keep looking. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, or that's not. Thomas, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I definitely echo a lot of that. The biggest surprise that I had coming to college was definitely the lack of structure, in that, at least for me, going in high school, you're kind of told what to do every day, and you have a very clear schedule, and I go to golf practice, and my parents pick me up, etc. Whereas the biggest thing is definitely managing your time in college, and that depending on your schedule, you might have a full day without any class. So you have to be disciplined enough to go to the library by yourself, because you have 3 hours of golf practice at 4 p.m. And obviously that's not going to happen every single time, but the more you can be disciplined, especially in season, the more you're going to get out of it. And it's especially in golf, it's a big push in the first 6 weeks. And then once that's over, you can definitely relax and get your bearings a little bit more academically. But yeah, that's the main part of it.
What are you studying?
I'm an econ major. I was going to be an econ Chinese double major, and COVID hit, and I dropped the Chinese major. So yeah.
I think that was a really good just insight into college life for the student side of things. I'm a numbers guy. I like numbers and trying to get something in your heads. Like our team GPA last year was 3.75. That's at a school like Williams, and we have about half our team pre-med or econ majors, which are difficult majors. So you really have to have that discipline, like Thomas touched on, to balance. Like we played 6 weekends in a row this fall. We take Mondays off. We practice Tuesday through Friday. On the road Friday, tournament round Saturday, tournament round Sunday. Those were long rounds. So you have to get your homework in during that time as well. So you can tell once this midterms were starting to hit towards the end of the fall season, that's a lot to manage. So you have to be ready for that. One thing I try to tell our prospective students or recruits is like, this is going to be hard. If you're looking for something that really you can push to be the best student you can be, to be the best golfer you can be, this might not be the place for you. But if you're excited for that challenge, it's going to be a good growth through that time, but it's not always going to be easy. So that's really important to realize that. It's a challenging time to balance all those things. And one of the common questions I often get is, like, what about study hall? Do we get some support for our academics? And I can only speak for Williams at least, and a couple of institutions I've been at, high academic, that's not needed. That you have to have that discipline coming in. So when you're setting up your high school schedules now, you're picking AP honors classes and whatnot, like, really push yourself. I know admissions offices throughout the country, they're going to be looking for that. Are you pushing yourself as a student? Or did you take a calculus class and like, I got a B, that wasn't as good, so I'm going to just keep going. I'm not going to go to AP calculus math honors class because that's going to be too difficult. Like, they're going to pick up on that right away. So continue to push yourself on those class selections all the way through your senior year. Because I've also known situations where a Power 5 Division 1 program, and I know more than two situations where they've had to drop a scholarship offer to a player because they didn't pick up on their academics all the way throughout senior year. So you can't slack on those things. That becomes the number one factor, whatever level you're playing at. You can be I often say for us, you can be the best golfer in the world, and you come to, hey, I want to play on the Williams women's golf team. If you don't have the academics, that's where our road ends. There's no way past that. So you sort of have to make sure that you attend to the academic side first, whatever level you're imagining to play at.
That's great. I mean, that hits the nail on the head. I would not have gone to Williams. Now that I know that. But that's awesome, and it really does a true testament to the value of education, and I think the value of the students that you guys find is really, really awesome, because they're out there, and any of you can do that with that extra, push that extra button. I love the analogy. It's like a B isn't good enough, just kind of like an 80 isn't maybe good enough. Push yourself to that 76, 75. Push yourself back into the A. I love it. Another question I got, a big one, is once you're in college golf, 5 players travel, generally speaking, on a regular basis to tournaments. Some schools will keep up to 10 or 12 players on their team. And how does a school decide who travels, and how do you get an opportunity to play? And this was a big one that I think should really be asked right on the front end. And do you want to be a part of a team, or do you actually want to compete on the team? And being a part of Skidmore, Tom Pedisano here does an unbelievable job with his ranking system. It's called the dynamic ranking system, and we carry 10. We have 10 on the team, 12, sorry, 12 on the team. 12 on the team right now, that's a big number for a Division III program, and trying to cut that to 5 to travel, sometimes 6 with an individual, and then I'll let him explain kind of the not ugly scenario, but the reality is that the spring break trip actually gets cut down a little bit as well. So I'm going to let Tom explain how he goes through his dynamic ranking and how he decides, and we decide who plays on a weekly basis, as well as who travels to spring break. I think he kind of nails this, and it's a numbers guy as well. It makes a lot of sense. So, Tom.
Thank you. Yep, like numbers, just to echo in Williams College, time management. Anders and I like phrases. Time management, huge. Don't forget that. And accountability. Everything that happens to you, in some ways, form or fashion, is dependent on you. So just figure that out and do better. So we go through the recruiting process. We invite 2 or 3 players, and we know them from their junior year. We invite them to see our spring tournament the year of their senior in high school, so they get to see a tournament. They get to know our players. We get to know them. So a year and a half goes by. All of a sudden, it's August 30th or whatever that date is, and they show up. Wow, this is great. There's 12 of us. We're a fraternity. We're all golfers. We're all brothers. And then we start playing golf every day, 18 holes a day, sometimes 36, because that happens. We need to test your endurance. There is endurance in golf. And as the week progresses, all of a sudden, wow, these guys are playing really good. These guys are playing okay. These guys are struggling a little bit. So what we do is we have a ranking system. We call it dynamic ranking because it's always changing. It's fluid. You can move up, you can move down. When we do decide who's going to play, only 5 people do. We call it getting on the bus. Because on Friday morning, a bus pulls up and 5 players get on it. That's getting literally on the bus. The other 7 do not. It's not like the basketball team where if you're on the end of the bench, you still get on the bus, you see the game, maybe you get in for the last 2 minutes or so. Golf, you're on the bus or you're not. So as we go through the first week of September, we start saying, okay, this guy's our number 1 player. So 1, 2, and 3 start battling out. But then 4, 5, 6, 7 gets really exciting because, wow, there's a big difference between 5 and 6. And then if you get to be 7, 8, and 9, you start to get pretty far away from 5. And if you're 10, 11, 12, you start going, ooh, what do I feel like? Am I adding to this team? Am I not adding to this team? So our dynamic ranking keeps everybody involved, keeps everybody pushing everybody. If you're 6, you're fighting like crazy to get to be number 5. If you're 9, you're fighting like crazy to get to be number 8, because that's the cut we do make for our spring break tournament to Georgia. It's pretty tough when your buddies get on the bus and you're not. Now, the people that don't get on the bus, it doesn't end there, especially the first weekend. So say you're 6 or 7, and we have a thing we call non-travel qualifiers, or NTQs. So we set up an event for those 7 players, or 6, whatever it may be, to compete that weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And they have their own tournament, which further determines their ranking in the 6 to 12 positions. So if you win the NTQ, and whoever finishes last in the starting 5, now we got an interesting conversation come Tuesday. Gotta give you Monday off and say but it keeps everybody motivated. It keeps you feeling part of the team. It keeps everybody working hard. And what may be not so obvious is if the 8, 9, 10 guys stop caring or stop working hard, or even 11 and 12, it kind of drags down everybody. It's like, hey, here's our expectation of what we want. And these guys don't really, the energy's not there, the body language brings us all down. So we need to keep everybody working hard and motivated. If you're not working hard, you're not motivated, then we have the really tough question of, well, why are you on the team? Well, we don't want to go there. But to Andrew's point, when you're talking to a coach, when they show interest and you're getting close to that point, when you're getting vetted out of the last 5 or 6 players that maybe get invited to a school, ask those questions. How do you determine who plays? Where am I going to be? So my answer to you is going to be, well, we kind of think we know how you are as a player, but when you do show up to school, your whole life changes. So we're going to see what happens. And that's what the dynamic ranking system does. But you're never out of it. We've had players go from 1 to 12 and 12 to 1. And that story is kind of neat to watch. There's a lot of life lessons, both good and, it's easy to succeed. It's really hard to fail, pick yourself back up, and then succeed after that. But if you can learn those lessons within the Skidmore College golf program, you're going to have a better life. And one thing I want to add when I'm recruiting players, I always tell them, the players, their families, and similar to Williams, we recruit families, we recruit a culture. But the school you pick, it's a significant financial investment. It's a significant investment. It builds the foundation for the quality of the rest of your life. And the golf program simply enhances that experience because it's only 4 years. The rest of your life is forever. So pick the school you want to go to based first on what's the best fit for you and what you want your life to be like, and then pick the golf.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. It's a kind of a fun ranking to follow because I get the text on Monday morning and I say, ooh, who moved up, who moved down, and it's tough, right? I mean, that's a challenging thing for a coach to do, is to tell a senior that he's not going to go on a senior spring break trip because his golf game has suffered over the course of the years. I just want to make a quick note, and I kind of actually look for your opinion on this. Is I think junior golf is probably a little easier to progress as you're playing junior golf. You have the support, you have rides to tournaments and all of these things, and then as you get into college, I mean, progressing a golf game from your freshman year to your senior year is a challenge. I mean, we've seen it at Skidmore where you come in as a freshman and you're playing 1, 2, 3, and then might not be playing after that. So, I kind of, I mean, any of you guys can answer this, but what does it take to get better as a college golfer? Because your opportunities to play summer golf might start to dwindle a little bit. Your opportunities in between season, I mean, we're all up here, we're all up in the Northeast. It's snowing probably tomorrow, and we're 6 months of it. So how do you get better while you're at college, and how do you progress your game, I guess, from freshman to senior year? Anybody want to kind of take that?
Sure.
Maybe like what it looks like to, what a season kind of looks like in full for some of your students.
Okay, so that's a great question. I'll do my best. So I've noticed, depending, and this is just my second year in this role at the College of St. Rose, for example, Division 2 program Depending on the year that you're in, so freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, graduate student, time management, someone over here alluded to that earlier, Tom, that definitely dictates, at least from my observations, who's working on their game for the better. You have to do X amount of hours every week, academically, obviously, like that. But also, Josh touched on this earlier, if you can get on top of that, then it becomes a question of who's carving out their time, who's asking me if I have time to help them with their game, even on my own time. And that just, I love that. I mean, I might not always have the time to help them, but if I'm being approached by someone who says, hey coach, my chipping is rubbish at present, can you just give me 15 minutes? I'd appreciate it. And that just speaks to me, and I'll find a way to do it. It might be at like 6:30 at night, but whatever. It sounds like a bit of a cliche, but you have to want to get better, particularly at that level. It's a significant investment to get to that level, and to maintain it. You have to carve out some extra hours there. Like with anything, but particularly with golf, I would say the Division 2 level is very finely balanced between academics and athletics. I think you'll find that Division 1 level, it's more athletics, more of a focus on the athlete, a little less time on the academic side of it, just due to the responsibilities with travel and things like that at D1. But it still comes back to the same thing. Find the time, ask for help if you need it.
So real quick, I just got 2 points with that. One is when you show up as a first year, the things we partner with the editors, we put you in what we call a first year assessment, and we really boil down what your game is. And the first discussion we have is to make sure that the player understands what their own game is, because that's the starting point. And then it's a matter of teaching them how to train. It's kind of interesting to me how many players will arrive, say, yeah, I go to the range a couple times a week and I have my weekly lesson with the pro. When you get to school, we got you 6 days a week, and it's, how do you spend your time? If you have 80 minutes, how do you spend those 80 minutes? How you train, I think, is a big factor on if you improve or not.
So 2019, both Coach Thomas and I had an individual NCAA champion. So Williams College held both the men and women's individual national champions. I'm going to tell a quick story about Sam Goldenring. He's the one on my team that went to Lexington, Kentucky, and won wire to wire down there, Keene Trades Golf Club, where they play actually the Barbershop Championship. But he's a legacy student. His mother went to Williams, his grandmother went to Williams. So he was torn between some high-level Division I schools, some Ivies, and then in the back of his mind, this Williams College is sitting there. Didn't want to disappoint Grandpa and Mom, and actually that coach's older brother too was a rock star player. I let him do his own thing, so I knew he had enough family pressure to go to Williams, so he eventually rolled around and had a really nice conversation in my office. He ultimately boiled down that he'd like to be a big fish in a small pond and come to Williams. He has the ability to get better and be a good Division I golfer. I wouldn't say reach the levels he did at Williams in Division III, but he definitely had the work ethic and the talent. So he comes in freshman year, and he starts showing up at noon every day. And I was questioning, well, when are you going to class? He said, well, I booked all my classes in the morning. So I was out of class every day by 11 o'clock. He'd be at the golf course sitting in the patio with his laptop out, and he'd go over and roll some putts for 20 minutes, half hour. I'm the golf pro, so I'd step out and watch him. And then he'd go sit down, and about 45 minutes later, he'd leave the laptop and go up by the putting green again and roll the same putts. And he'd just do this until practice started around 3 o'clock. And so he had that free time. It wasn't that he went home and played video games or had a long lunch or met with friends. He was a driven individual that wanted to get better and work harder. And after 4 years of that, actually won it his junior year. He lost his senior year to COVID, where our spring was canceled. But some of the captains that first year he was on the team started showing up what they thought was early at 2 o'clock for a 3:30 practice. And Sam had already been there for an hour and a half, and he just started grabbing chunks of experience and improving the skill set that much more by having a coach that would pop out and say hello and work with him for a few minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and then let him think about it as he's typing the paper or working on his problem set. And he just did that throughout the 4 years. It was really, really neat to see. Just a driven individual that was dedicated to work on the game. So, pretty neat experience.
And just reminded me of the 2019 national champion on the women's side, Cordelia Chan, because she's an anomaly. It's you don't see that very often when you have a player that's a 4-time All-American, so every year All-American golfer, and a 4-time academic All-American also from the same person. She's now at Columbia Dental School. Having that kind of work ethic to be able to find that balance. But my point with Cordelia is more, you see growth in her game from the time she came in as a freshman, and scoring average got lower every year. And it's unique to see that in college golf. So that's something, as you're researching different college and universities teams, look at what's the progression. Maybe ask the coach, hey, what do you see in your players? Do you see them get better every year? Does it fluctuate depending on the personality? What are they doing, those players that actually do see their games getting better during college? And I use the scoring average to use that comparison. But I actually like, Tommy earlier was talking about handicap. I don't like handicap either. And I actually don't like scoring averages in junior golf either. And I'll try and make this quick. A lot of you might be thinking, like, I want to be more consistent. I want to become a more consistent golfer. Shoot in the high 70s more often. Shoot in the low 80s, break 90 more often. And I get a lot of those golfers come and say, hey, what are you working on? What are you trying to do? I'm trying to be more consistent. Okay, and then I see a player that is I want to see more low 70s from that. That's for us, for the player we were trying to recruit. And I was like, okay, I can help you be very consistent. Shoot 77 every round. Is that what you're looking for? Like, no, not really. I want to shoot like even par, maybe under par golf. Then you're not looking to be consistent, because I'd rather see you shoot 72 and then 82. You're going to be averaging the same. You're going to be averaging 77. So scoring average doesn't necessarily say the entire story. I'd rather see a player that's capable of shooting low scores. Even that means that player is pushing themselves, is making mistakes. Shooting high scores every now and then, but at least they're trying to get to that low level. Once we see that, your most common score going from junior golf to college, and this is sort of my rule of thumb, you can always add about 2 to 3 shots to your most common score, I'll call that. Let's say you're shooting 79, and you look at, I could play on the Williams team. I might be 4th, 5th, 6th on the team, but I average about the same, from about the same distances. Then we get back to the same things we were talking about earlier. You're living by yourself for the first time. You're taking care of your laundry for this first time. You're figuring out when to eat, what dining hall. There's a lot of variables that then lead that you have a tendency to shoot higher scores freshman year of college. But then it's where do you go from there? Are you getting the coaching, the support that you need to continue to get better throughout each year you're in college? And that's important to figure out when you're doing your research on your colleges, is like, what support are you going to have to continue to develop your game to get better each year?
What would you do differently, or what would you tell an athlete that's sitting here, like, how to deal with that?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of it for me was on the upperclassmen, in that I was very lucky in that the juniors and seniors on the team, and hopefully I did this year, I think we all did a good job, but are very welcoming and nice and showing you what you have to do. It's very clear early on what the golf schedule is going to be like. And they kind of just give you advice, because all of them have been through it, and everyone knows that freshman fall can be really tough, just because it's probably one of the biggest transitions that you go through in life, is just going from your family right into college where you're by yourself. That can definitely be overwhelming. So I definitely leaned on the older guys a lot for that. But I would say the actual transition into the team wasn't that difficult, and that, especially if you're in the high school golf team, a lot of the camaraderie is the same. Like you have older guys, younger guys, and hopefully everyone's nice and selfless to the team as a whole. So I'd say that transition, to be honest, was very fluid in that the older guys were super nice right off the bat, and it was pretty clear to us as freshmen what we had to do to succeed.
You guys have any fun? I'll talk about fun too.
Oh yeah, there's college is a lot of fun at the same time.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I got really, this is not that interesting, but I got really into squash in college. It's a fun fact about Williams College is they have the highest squash court to undergraduate ratio in the country, which is interesting. So yeah, me and Jimmy, who I'm actually living with this year, got really into squash in college, so that's, I'd say, my second calling. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, the gym at Williams is solid, so we do a lot of that, especially in the off season. Yeah, there's just, especially in Williamstown, it's beautiful out there. It's fun to go on like hikes, and there's just plenty of things to do, especially once you get out of season. Like you have plenty of downtime to hang out with friends or find new interests, which is something that I definitely took advantage of in college.
Speak to the PGA management schools.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the PGA management schools, right now there's 2 million jobs in the golf industry, and it's an $84 billion industry, and we're aging out. Like there's a significant need for people to enter the golf industry. The PGA has PGM schools, which are awesome. I was in this audience, I'll say 10 years ago. Not really, it was actually 20 years ago. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a high school senior. I had no clue. I was like, how will I be a phys ed teacher? Because that sounds super cool, and I love sports. My dad read an article in the Wall Street Journal, and it said you can go to Coastal Carolina University, come out with a PGA membership, and be a golf professional. And I was like, sign me up. I am into that. Well, I didn't do that. I went to the University of Buffalo, got a degree in marketing, and it all worked out because I stayed home for a girl. And we're married and we have children, and it's great. So it's a really good story. But PGM schools prepare you to work in the golf industry. You come out of a PGM school with your PGA membership and you're ready to go. You also can play collegiate golf at a PGM school. So it's a really unique opportunity. If you don't know what you want to do, working in sport, working in golf is one of the best jobs. You know, I can't imagine my life without it. We work hard, but you work at a golf course. You know, your office is 18 holes. It's a putting green. It's a driving range. I mean, you get to teach people and you help people every single day of your life. So PGM schools, there's 17 of them across the country. You can play collegiate golf there on the PGM, on the school team. Also, you will play during college. You know, when you're in the PGM management program, you play all the time. You may not play on the college golf team at the school, but you are playing to pass your PAT or become good enough to pass your PAT, which is your playing ability test. So there are a lot of PGM schools in the warm climates, Coastal Carolina, Florida Gulf Coast, Methodist University is a great D3 school as well. So there's lots of opportunities to go to school. Clemson is actually, they kind of dropped. But there's a lot of great schools to attend, you know, to become a PGA member. And once you have a PGA after your name, you can do anything in the golf business. I will say this, all of us up here have worked in this business. The skills that you acquire and that you learn are transferable to any industry in the world. You know, I will never be jobless just because of the connections that I've made, the skills that I've learned. If I want to get out of golf, I've met members, I've met people, I'll have a job the rest of my life, whatever it may be. So I didn't really expand a ton on PGM schools, but does that answer your question? Is that pretty good? Awesome. And you know what, if you do have any questions about careers in golf or afterward, you can scan that little QR code and I'll directly reach out to you after this seminar. So thanks for the question. Anybody else? You need to ask questions, don't be shy. I got a great panel up here.
Good.
Earlier, you talked about the blackout period or whatever it's called, where coaches can and can't reach out to athletes, student athletes. But you said student athletes can reach out to their coaches. If a student athlete reaches out to a coach and it's in that time period, is the coach allowed to respond to the student?
So I'll answer that one because it just happened this morning actually. I got an email from a 2027 golfer, which is far and away outside the range of when you're supposed to be talking to me. But like I said earlier, I appreciate it. I just can't reply. So they're not going to get their email bounced. But just to give some context, I'm actively talking to, I would say, 7 female golfers for the 2023 class right now, not to mention maybe another half dozen for the 2022 class. So sophomores, after sophomore year, where I come from, it's year 9, year 10, year 11, year 12. After sophomore year, I start to hear from a lot more, and then into junior year as well. Once I hear from people in senior year, then goes back to the cone. Yeah, whittling down the cone. I got a lot of emails as well.
Way in the back there.
Do the schools that you have up on a panel offer scholarships?
I'll take that. That is a very popular question because, as all of you are becoming aware, if you're not aware already, school is expensive. So Division III, what makes it Division III is there are not college scholarships. Division I does have college scholarships. Division II has some interesting rules, but that does include some. So you have schools in D3 that can offer merit scholarships, and there's some that do not. Those are the questions you need to ask the coach, or if you're really engaging in a specific school, don't be afraid to call the admissions office and ask specifically them. Most schools have either a financial aid calculator or will guide you to what's going to fit your situation. But ask those questions.
Yeah, I don't know. And also Division One, and so a full scholarship, just to go over the Division One, is you have 6 full scholarships on the, like down here, on the women's side, and 4.5 on the men's side. That's if you're a fully sponsored Division One program. Division Two varies a lot. You also have NAIA that offers scholarships as well, so just to confuse it a little bit more. Division Three doesn't offer it. Things like merit or not. Give an example of Williams, it's a sticker price of about $70,000 a year. And you're looking like, wow, that's a lot. An average student pays about $35,000 of that. There are no merit aid at Williams. So it's all based on need. So if there's a financial, if your family has an income that would justify you can pay the $70,000, you have to pay the $70,000. If you come from a high need financial background, you might not pay anything. And this is really important to look at for all families as they look into how to finance the college education. And really look at it, how strong is the need-based aid? How strong is the merit aid? And then if you're Division I, Division II, you qualify for scholarships. And then it's not just, oh, I got a scholarship. How high is the scholarship? It might be a school that the tuition is $45,000, $50,000, and you qualify for $10,000 in scholarship. You're still paying $35,000 to $40,000. So then it might be actually more affordable to go to a Division III school that doesn't offer any scholarships because they offer a better need-based aid. I'm not an expert in this. I can't go into any specific situation about it, but it's really important to do your research about what is the actual cost once my son or daughter enters college.
So I was a recruited golfer out of Massachusetts. Went to the University of Rhode Island. I started in 1996, and the coach there offered me a half scholarship. Taking a chance on a kid from Western Massachusetts, and I earned my spot. And we had 4.5 scholarships at Rhodey, and I had a half spot, so that was a little bit more incentive, especially with my family, to work that much harder to earn one of those spots that we're graduating there. So, you know, I encourage everybody, when you sit down with a coach, to ask honest questions, you know, think them through. But don't be afraid to ask us anything. I mean, our job up here is to make sure you find a good fit. There's a lot of fits out there. There's a lot of places for everybody to play golf. Our golf programs are still going to go on if you choose not to come to our school. There's another school down the road. So there's a spot for everybody. But ask those honest questions with the coach and work up a dialogue and a small relationship and be very frank. And tell them where you're coming from and what you're thinking about. And if you have other schools on the table and they're offering something, we've heard it all. And we'll give you an honest answer back. We're not going to sugarcoat anything. We're going to try to lead you in the right direction. I've had cases where a student between two schools, and I've had to say to that student, you know, maybe you got to go to the other school right now, so I'm not ready to make this commitment with you. And that's a tough conversation to hear on your end, and it's a tough conversation for us to tell you that. In some cases, you squash their dreams, unfortunately, and some you make their day. So we're willing to have those tough conversations. Don't be afraid to. Don't think you're going to offend us. We've heard it all, and we've had the conversations in our coaching groups at our schools with our peers that we've all been in that situation. So ask honest questions. We're here to help. Don't try to sugarcoat anything. So we're going to figure out who the golfer is and what kind of student you are, and your work ethic and your quality of character. So we're here to do the same, and make sure you vet the coach out. Ask him some tough questions. Make sure you kind of get that coach in a hot seat for a little bit and see what he has to say. So it goes back and forth. It's very useful for both parties. Owen.
What is the biggest factor coming from a coach on determining who gets recruited and who you say, I don't want to recruit you?
He's my member. He's my member. Somebody. He's heard my spiel.
Yeah, it is. It ended with me. But that's a really good question. A lot of it, I kind of wanted to touch on this, and maybe this is a good spot to do it. A lot of it has to do with your first contact. So I'll get emails and be like, hey, I'm super excited to do this, and what's going on, and here's me, and I'm the 7th ranked person in Montgomery County. Okay, that's not really capturing it. If you present yourself, coach, and make sure you have the right coach's name on your email. Everybody laughs, right? My favorite story is somebody's applying for a job with me once. I had great attention to detail and spelled attention wrong. I said, apparently not. There's a lot of little things that could turn you off to a coach. And like we said, we get 200-300 emails. Just like in the real world, you get a pile of resumes. Some of them are just no. Get to the point. There's plenty of time to tell the life story. Say, here's who I am, here's where I'm from, here are my grades, here's my aspirations, this is why I like Williams College, or wherever it is you want to go. Don't give the opportunity for somebody to just go, I'm going to deal with this. That your first contact is your opportunity to make you sound interesting. And I find myself when I'm talking to people on the phone, after an email or two, it's like, okay, this might be a good fit. Let's have a phone call. And what I say is, I find you interesting. That's a really weird thing to say, right? But it's true. It's like, well, it's interesting. It's not like, wow, this is great. You belong at Skidmore. It's interesting. Let's keep talking. And that's what you want to do. Have a good first impression, and then keep the conversation going until either you wind up at that school, which you're going to wind up somewhere, or you vet it out on either end. It needs to be a good fit for you. It needs to be a good fit for us. It needs to be that, or else it drops off your list when you come.
It just reminds me, really on point. It reminded me of the coaching community is small. Whatever, Division 1, 2, 3, NENY, we know a lot of other coaches, and we talk to a lot of other coaches. So make it personal, why do you want to go to that college? But then I get, often, it's actually gotten less, then I get emails Williams is definitely my #1 school. I really want to go to Williams. And then I talked to my friend, the coach at Amherst. I'm really oh yeah, she said, Williams is my #1 choice. And then I talked to my friend down Emory in Atlanta. Oh yeah, Emory's my #1 choice. And you go down the list. That's not very attractive. That's not being authentic. You can list why you're really interested in that school, and definitely include that. But don't start to think of okay, I just have to sum enthusiastic because definitely as you would like to think, like, hey, like Skidmore coach, you really want him to recruit you. Then he also wants you to really go to Skidmore. It goes both ways, but it can be to a point where you just are not connecting anymore. So make sure that you're being true in your communication.
Other questions? High school.
What
Yeah,
grade
what high
school you're
school?
coming
Yeah.
from, does it matter?
I think the easy answer there is no, because everybody comes from somewhere, and you make the most of where you are. So you can be the best person you are coming from anywhere. That being said, yeah, there's kids that come from whatever, Schenectady High School, there's kids that come from, elite private schools in Manhattan. But we weigh all that out. At the end of the day, it's who are you as a person? And that comes from everywhere. Talk with me all night.
Anyone else?
One more. How do the coaches feel about what the role of a private instructor or swim coach for the student is moving into your realm?
I'm holding this, I'll start and I'll be brief. That's going to be different with all of us. For me, I recognize that players come from somewhere, they've had coaching, so we try to understand what that is, and then we integrate that with what we do.
Thank you. It's a good question, and I think it's important to realize what the differences are. Some of us might feel very comfortable, like, hey, like, yeah, I'm going to be really involved in technical changes and adaptations as you go. Some is like, I'm going to stay away from that. The reality is, for a lot of college programs, you're not going to have a ton of time during the competitive season to work on the technical aspects of your game. And so it's really important that you come from a solid background and you have a good relationship with your coach back at home. Like, I've actually really enjoyed connecting with swing coaches from the junior golfers I've been working with and now on our college team. It's like, hey, what have you been working on previously? How can I make sure that I continue on that path with the player? And that's important because you don't want to all of a sudden make that switch. Thomas touched on it earlier, there's a lot of changes. The transition is big from junior golf to college. You don't want to add another transition. You want to keep some continuity, some stability in that process.
So I like stories. This is a story. Jim Furyk, does any juniors know Jim Furyk? He's kind of old now, but unorthodox swing for sure, right? He's got a big, takes it outside, turns, loops it in, and has kind of an ugly finish. But he won a FedEx Cup, won a US Open, pretty good stuff. He was being recruited at Arizona State and University of Arizona. His dad was a PGA professional. Went to Arizona State, got in front of the coach and hit balls. It was on pseudo tryout, should they recruit the student or not. And the dad, Jim was using the restroom or off the side. So what do you think? He's like, I think I can work with him. The swing's a little different, but we can fix that. And he didn't mention anything to Jim. They drove the 2 hours down to Tucson to the University of Arizona. And he got in front of that coach. Same situation. Hits the balls, and the coach said, yeah, I like impact. I like what you're doing. I like your work ethic. Let's go. And he signed on with the University of Arizona. And it wasn't until afterwards that Jim's dad said to him, what do you think? And he said, I just don't think I'm ready for a swing change. I'm not ready for that. I'm playing pretty good. I was one of the top-ranked amateurs in the country. And he's like, I wasn't going to let you go to Arizona State and kind of throw away what you worked so hard for. So that's my theory as far as I'm a PGA professional. I teach a lot of lessons, but a student comes with what they have. They work really hard to get there. So own it. We're going to work on course management. We're going to work on time management. We're going to work on fitness, fueling your body correctly, getting enough sleep. Those are the things that we can make an impact on. We have 12 on our roster. And we just can't get to everybody's specific swing. We're lucky enough to have some technology in there. We use TrackMan. That's useful for yardage and carry yardages. But I don't love going into a person's game either and tinkering because I didn't build it. I don't know where they're really coming from. I've had conversation with their coach, but I'm not the one that helped them get to where they are. So I'll work on little things. And Thomas, you can talk more about this, but has your game changed since you've come to Williams?
Kind of off that. Technically, it's changed very, very little, I'd say, but every year, and we spoke this earlier a little bit, it's definitely improved in that I just have definitely realized, especially in college, to like not put as much pressure on like the smallest little things or get so bogged down making a bad score or like getting some adversity. So I think in that way I've grown a lot in college. But I'd say the main way it's changed is that one, that mindset and just moving on faster. And two, yeah, just being able to like roll with the punches and not get too bogged down, especially in the middle of the season with like, what am I doing with my left hand at address and like, how far am I taking the club back? Because really, once you start thinking like that, especially in the middle of the season, it's very, very rarely going to help you. But I'm actually working on something right now that as soon as I finish the season, I was like, okay, maybe I should do this with my grip. And like, now it's a great time for that. But getting too bogged down in the technical aspect would definitely, in my opinion, do more harm than good when you're in the heat of it.
So that being said, there is a time for technique and to work on stuff, just not necessarily in the short, condensed college season, fall and spring.
I think it's worth mentioning, there's a lot of NCAA rules. And one of them being, as college coaches, we're not able to work with the golfer when we're not in season. In season is short. It's about 6-7 weeks in the fall, about 8 to 9 weeks in the spring. Outside of that time, we're not allowed to work on golf-specific things with the players. So that's where other coaches come in handy. Other questions?
I'll answer that quickly from the instructional side of things, which is what I do from a junior standpoint. As you kind of noticed here, you heard a lot about the mind. I would put that on a priority standpoint, is to work on brain skills, work on your body language, work on your mindset, work on those skills that will kind of not only help your scoring, but also help get into those educational components as well. Technical swing changes, I've coached with Skidmore for a long time. It is tough to do a swing change during a college season. There is a very short amount of time, like these guys say, and then we can't even really work with them during the time when we probably should be. So it's kind of tricky, and having that kind of falling back situation. So I've got a couple of players that work with Matt and get an opportunity to see him this time of year. So there's that advantage there. But working on your mind skills and probably controlling your speed on your putts is probably all you guys need to work on. That is the biggest differentiator from what I see from a really high quality player is controlling your speed on your putt and controlling your mindset. So I believe if anybody else has any questions, I think we nailed it right at 7:30. It's amazing. No, close enough. Anybody else have any questions before we go? Thank you guys all for traveling over. Josh from Williams, that's a different state. And Chris, I'm not really sure where you came from, but I know I wasn't close by. So thanks for joining us. And
So before you leave, thank you for coming as well. If you don't mind filling out that survey, we would greatly appreciate it. Positive feedback, constructive criticism, anything that we can do to, continue this education. That's our goal annually. As Chris said, if you want to scan the QR code, he'll we'll get that contact info and be happy to talk to you about recruiting for the business. And other than that, thank you gentlemen for joining us tonight, and wish you guys all a nice holiday, and hope that we see you next year on the junior tour. Thanks.
Thanks,